Welcome back to the Real Estate Girls podcast. We're your hosts, Heather and Kaci. If you're looking for market updates, expert guidance, and a peek into what really happens in real estate, you're in the right place. We're here to educate, entertain, and keep it real.
We've got a big episode for you today. The Federal Reserve made its latest call on rates on Wednesday, September 17th, and we're breaking down exactly what that decision means for the housing market and your next real estate move. On a more serious note, it's been just over a week since the tragic assassination of Charlie Kirk. We're also going to share our thoughts and reflections on everything that unfolded on September 10th.
So let's talk about the Federal Reserve and what actually happened with that. The Federal Reserve just lowered its benchmark interest rate by 25 basis points. That's 0.25%. In plain English, the federal funds rate dropped from a target range of 4.25% to 4.50% down to 4.00% to 4.25%. This marks the first rate cut we've seen in 9 months, and it comes with plenty of speculation that we could see one or even two more cuts by the end of 2025.
Which would be great.
Yes, the benchmark rate is officially called the federal funds rate. What the federal funds rate is, in plain English, think of it as the rate banks charge each other for very short-term loans. Usually overnight, banks borrow from each other to make sure they have enough cash on hand for daily transactions to meet the reserve requirements. When that rate goes down, it costs banks less to borrow money.
Yeah, I mean, so before this decision, we've talked about the federal funds rate before, but the target range was 4.25 to 4.5. We're not talking about interest rates on mortgages here.
Yes.
And I think that's where a lot of confusion comes in. It's like Heather said, it is the interest rate that banks charge each other for these short-term loans overnight to meet those reserve requirements.
Right.
And so, like Heather said, when the rate goes down, it costs banks less to borrow money. Because banks are borrowing, the borrowing costs are lower. They can afford to offer rates to you, lower the rates on things like credit cards, auto loans, home line equity line of credit, HELOCs,
Yes.
home equity line of credits. Think about your credit card or car loan. It costs a little less to carry that debt now. And when that monthly payment shrinks, people often have a little more cash left over. So if you're paying less, to drive that vehicle, maybe a buyer, will say, hey, I got more money in my pocket.
Yes.
I can possibly afford a house. I can put more money down on a house. I'm more comfortable in entering the housing market.
And I just thought about this. Your debt to income is a huge factor when lenders are pre-approving you for a loan. If you can afford more because, your debt's lower, you have a little more money in the bank, bam, you can afford a nicer house maybe.
Absolutely. And so I think people get confused because I do feel like, and maybe it's just our age and the industry that we're in, but I do feel like a lot of people were looking and like, okay, September 16th and 17th, we're going to look at this rate decision, and they think, oh, that's interest rates on mortgages.
Lower mortgage
and
interest rates.
It doesn't translate. I do know that before this rate decision, the mortgage rates in particular have been dropping in anticipation for this federal funds rate to be cut. And so, I talked to a local lender, Steve Dick. He's with Guild Mortgage. We've had him on the podcast before. He's great. Reach out to Steve for all your lending needs. But I just sent him a text. I'm like, hey, Steve, and this is before the rate decision. I said, what are we looking at locally for interest rates? And this is directly from Steve Dick. He said he had FHA around 5.625%, conventional at 6.625%, and VA at 5.75%. And those are pretty great numbers, compared to what we saw at the beginning of the year, at least.
Yeah.
And so obviously this can vary depending on credit score and loan amount, but it's a pretty good start to a possible shift in the market.
Yeah, absolutely. And so why did the feds make this move? The Fed uses interest rate as a tool to balance the economy. Okay, so The Federal Reserve long-term goal for inflation is 2% annually.
Mm-hmm.
The most recent number for US inflation has been 2.9% over the 12 months ending August 2025. So this is still almost a percentage higher than what Jerome Powell, chair of the US Federal Reserve, wants. What this means, we kind of just touched on this, but for home buyers, even a small cut can make mortgage rates more attractive, improving affordability. For sellers, you have more buyers entering the market. And for buyers, it just makes borrowing a little bit easier and
Yeah.
improves return.
And I think Powell, that was kind of my reservation of, is this rate cut going to happen? Because
Yeah.
inflation is still over, like you said, almost a percent over what they like to see it at.
Yeah.
You want to see 2% inflation. Obviously, when you cut rates, that can encourage spending because
Yeah.
of a slow economy or things like that. And that could pull inflation higher. And so a lot of people wanted a 50 basis point cut, and we only saw a quarter of a point. And,
Yeah.
and obviously that was due to, we have, a soft job numbers that came out.
Yes.
We have, unemployment. The unemployment rate is 4.3%, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The number of unemployed people is approximately 7.4 million. Job growth has slowed significantly. August saw 22,000 non-farm payroll jobs added. That's well below what many economists, were expected. And weekly job claims are around 231,000 for the week ending September 13th. So, we did get the rate cut. He saw those job numbers, didn't like it. I know Powell has about 5 more meetings until he's out of there. So,
Yeah.
I'm sure he's concerned about his legacy and,
Yeah.
his impact.
Yeah.
And so obviously it's a lot more than Powell, but he is kind of the head.
Yeah.
And so if we get 2 more rate cuts, that would be great.
Yes.
It doesn't necessarily translate to mortgage rates, but over time, definitely, if it's costing banks less to loan money,
Yeah.
they can offer more competitive prices to finance, FHA, conventional, VA,
Yeah.
USDA, things like that.
Yeah, and
So.
I think that the rate cut was modest, like we said.
Yeah.
But I almost wonder if he's trying to be careful, because if he cuts it too much, inflation increases.
Right.
Am I right on that?
Absolutely. And that's what we saw, after COVID.
Yeah.
You had rates at 3% or less, and that encouraged spending. And
Yeah.
that's why you saw the inflation go up.
Yeah.
So I know the National Association of Realtors did come out, and they said there's approximately 5.5 million buyers on the sidelines. I mean, they're
Yeah.
eating their popcorn. They're sitting on the sidelines. They're waiting to see interest rates go down. They're waiting to see inflation go down because they just can't afford that house that they want. And so if we can get interest rates below 6% consistently for primary residents, you're going to see 5.5 million buyers enter that market, which
Yeah.
is great
It would
for
be
the real
wonderful.
estate market. Sellers can have a sigh of relief. Maybe we'll get more showings and more offers, and so I think that's what everybody wants.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see what's to come the rest of the year. I mean, we are in September, and so we have a couple more, months, and
Yeah.
hopefully we do get those 2 additional rate cuts.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, so let's transition. Let's switch gears and talk about Charlie Kirk. Unless you were completely unplugged from the world last week, which some people do, you know that he was tragically assassinated on live television. It was shocking. It was heartbreaking and honestly terrifying to watch.
Yeah, it was. This episode is going to be a little bit different. While we usually focus on real estate, today we felt it was important to pause and talk about something bigger than the market. We want to take a moment to honor and reflect on the life and the loss of Charlie Kirk and the impact his passing had on so many of us.
Absolutely. Charlie Kirk, if you don't know, was the founder of Turning Point USA. It's a conservative political organization, and he was a great advocate for the Christian faith. He's known for his strong positions on issues like immigration, gender, education, and religion. His speeches and media appearances were often polarizing and controversial, especially among those who disagreed with his views. I felt that he was encouraging to people to live a good life, to go to church. He encouraged people to turn away from this hookup culture, which you do see a lot in colleges and universities. to me, he was not a violent guy. He wanted you to know Jesus is the way, the truth, and the light in your life. He said that Christianity represents the greatest moral ethic we have, and it's the foundation of our nation. And that we cannot live in a free society without having Christian values. The majority of the signers of the Declaration of Independence were men who believed in Christ and upheld the Bible as their guide. Charlie always said he was a sinner and Jesus saved him. Heather, how do you feel? I mean, what did you feel when you heard the news that he had been shot? Where were you?
That moment is like almost like 9/11. So I was like 11 or 12.
It's crazy that you said that you remember.
I will never forget where I was.
Right.
I was in the car.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if when something happens that is so traumatic, your brain is doing something to protect you where you forget a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But I do remember being in the car, and I can't remember if I heard it on the radio or if I saw it like at a stop on my phone. I do know I was leaving a house that I was showing, and I remember seeing the initial news that he was shot. And I remember, like, how you say tiny prayers like throughout the day.
Yeah.
You like something happens and you're like, man, I hope that person's okay. Or you see a wreck on the side of the road and you say a tiny prayer in your head and you say, man, I just hope everything turns out okay with him, right? So I said like a tiny, just immediate prayer. And I remember I got stopped. I got back to the office. I want to say it was like 2:00. Maybe 2:30, almost 3, because I remember I had to leave to go get the kids from that point where I was. And I saw that they had done everything they could and he had passed. And it took me a while. It was almost like disbelief, I think is like the best way. Like
shock.
Sorrow, shock, disbelief. And then just tears, because I think a lot of people have made this point, but how traumatic that was on innocent children. Like the college students, yes, but his children who were there and his wife.
Were they there?
Yeah, I think that.
See, I didn't know that. I couldn't confirm that, but that's awful.
Yeah.
I mean, I think for sure, like social media. So like seeing it, seeing a live assassination, I think it was shocking. We were in Kentucky because we like to we bow hunt. It was opening season of whitetail deer for bow, and I think Sawyer was asleep, and I saw it either on social media or Thomas said something, and it's shock, and then you just immediately are like, okay, let me see the video, like, because you just think, my background in law enforcement, they're saying it was probably a high-powered rifle. Depending on where you get shot, let's see if he has a chance of survival, right?
Yeah,
so you go and you see the video, and the first video that we saw was further away.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, maybe it hit his, even though the report said it hit his neck.
Yeah.
It almost looked like it hit his, because I didn't have a close-up at that point. It almost like hit his collarbone or something like that. So you're just hopefully like, oh gosh, you start praying. And I didn't know much about Charlie Kirk as far as the family guy, the father, the son, the husband.
Yeah.
When I first learned about him was about a year ago, because I didn't follow him on social media.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I didn't, I knew of him.
Yeah.
But I remember Thomas my husband, showing me clips, where he was going out to these universities and talking about these very controversial topics. And my first thought was, wow, he's very articulate, very smart. He doesn't have any notes.
And he's young.
Yes. He's 31 years old.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, like a bright light for his, the conservative movement.
Yeah.
He obviously proclaimed his faith in front of the world. And I think everybody knew that he believed in Jesus Christ as his savior.
Yeah.
But my second thought was, wow, that's really dangerous.
Yeah.
Right? So obviously he founded this Turning Point USA, about 13 years ago.
Yeah.
And, he's going out to universities, which, college campuses are more liberal, that's just the nature of it. And I remember seeing videos when he first started, like, obviously I just knew about him for a year, but when he first started years and years ago, there was videos where there was like 5-10 people there debating him, and they weren't it wasn't the best conversations, but I felt like there was a shift where now he had thousands of followers coming. A lot of them were MAGA supporters. So there was a shift in like support.
Yeah.
Started off very small and things like that. But from a protective standpoint, I remember telling Thomas, this was a year ago, like, and I think it was shortly after our President Trump, there was an attempt on his life at Butler,
Yes.
Pennsylvania.
I thought about that too
And I was
immediately.
thinking,
Yeah.
wow, because he doesn't have the like a Secret Service following him around.
Right.
This is an elected official,
Yes.
okay, that has dignitary protection,
Right.
right? He's got private detail that he's probably hired, either Turning Point's paying for that or whatever. And sure, these guys are trained. They're probably prior military, prior law enforcement, but he doesn't have the resources that
Yeah.
like a Secret Service does. With that said, obviously, a guy got a shot off at our president with all the resources that Secret
Yes.
Service has. So I just remember telling Thomas, like, this is very dangerous.
Right.
Like, this is very dangerous. And Thomas is like, nah, no one's going to, take a shot at him. But I'm like, listen, when you're talking about very controversial topics, it gets heated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Different beliefs, and people don't always agree with them, and they feel that, well, they just feel how they feel.
Yeah. And, but yeah, so then it happens, and then you pray,
Yeah.
you hope that he's okay. And then then you see that he has a 3-year-old daughter and I think a 1-year-old son. And then,
Yeah.
then your emotions start coming into it, because
Yeah.
we're both mothers.
Yes.
And then I start thinking, if this happened to my husband, how would I deal with this? How would I feel? Obviously be devastated.
Right.
And to see a public assassination
Yeah.
I
For
think,
everyone to see.
and I asked myself this question: why does it affect us as much? Like, I've lost sleep over this.
Yeah.
Have you lost sleep?
Yeah. I think about it almost every 10 minutes. It plays in my head constantly.
Yeah.
I want to say it's because we relate to him so much, just as
Yeah.
a human being,
For
as
sure.
a loving human being. As far as his beliefs, he was a Christian man. He had a family, though. I mean, the point of, I think this is my belief, is the point of being alive and being here and living and what God made for us is to pass down our legacy, meaning our children and our family are so important. Family first, always. Well, God, family, and then, country. And we saw that was, a belief that he stood on. We see that everywhere. And I think that we can relate to that so closely, but he was innocent. Like, he was an innocent man, and those children were innocent, and his wife was innocent, and no one deserves that. No one.
No, I mean, I'm a conservative Republican. This is, my beliefs are more in line with the conservative movement.
Mine
I was
too.
raised in the church. I was raised to have a moral code. I
Yeah.
was raised by the 10 Commandments, and the Bible is my guide. So, I've learned through that there's good and there's evil. And then, so when you see this, you really think, okay, there is evil out in the world, because it's easy to get caught up. We're so busy. And then when you see something like this, so polarizing,
Yeah.
it reminds you of the evil.
Yeah.
And being in law enforcement for almost a decade, obviously, I've seen a lot of stuff. And, but being out of it almost 7 years now, you kind of forget.
Yeah.
And, my heart also goes out to that protection detail, because obviously I was on for those of you who don't know, I was a special agent with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. I was on a dignitary protection detail for the governor of Florida. And, this is the worst case scenario that could happen.
Yeah.
The person that you are protecting is murdered right in front of you.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember the guy with the sunglasses, and
In
he's
the
tatted up,
Yeah.
and I mean, he was just feet away
Yeah.
from this happening. And, what I touched on earlier is they don't have the resources as FDLE had, a state protected detail
Yeah.
or a Secret Service. They don't have the resources. And, you always want to Monday morning quarterback this. You know what I'm talking about? Like your team, the quarterback of your favorite NFL or college team on Saturday or Sunday throws 5 interceptions. And on Monday, you're like, oh, I would have done this and I would have done this.
Right.
And then it's like, you can't even throw it like 30 yards. Like, what are you talking about? You can't even throw a football 30 yards.
Right.
Like, so it's easy. And I don't want to do that because these guys, and I just saw guys, but it could be a female with them that is protecting Charlie. From what I've read, they've been around him for several years, and you develop a very intimate relationship with that person that you're protecting. Mainly, from my experience, you are around that person more than you are your family.
Yeah.
So they are technically like your family. You're having conversations with them, you're with them all the time, and just the trauma that they were subjected to. And I don't know how it works. I know with us, we had advance agents, we had body agents. The guy that was tatted up with the sunglasses, he was a body agent. So that typically is, you are on the body, you are on the person that you're protecting. So he is looking everywhere. If someone was to rush Charlie, if someone had a knife or a gun in the crowd, he's constantly on edge. Constantly. I was always taught, when I did this, that if you are comfortable, you are not being an effective protectee, someone that you're protecting.
Right.
If you are comfortable, you don't need to be there.
Yeah.
And so it was a high stress job. You're constantly looking, you're constantly watching hands, because hands kill, right? And so you're really focused on the immediate vicinity of people. Obviously, you want to look at roofs and stuff, but, the alleged assassin, was about 200 yards away or something.
Yeah, and
that's hard.
It happened fast, right?
It was super fast. And advance agents, so that people don't know, those are agents, like, for my experience, they go out before, they scope out the venue, they assess the security threats. Obviously, I don't know what happened there was a breakdown there, but after Butler, Pennsylvania, I feel like Charlie was such a star, and he had a lot of people that disliked him. And so knowing that, it's like, why did you let anybody on the roof? And then with technology, it's like, you could have had a drone to clear those roofs.
True.
Or, a lot of times we would work with local officials. If, I know Florida really well. I know the state of Florida, a lot of the cities really well. But if we're traveling out of state, if we're relying on local officials to be the experts on that area. So I don't know if the resources were there to work with law enforcement to secure those rooftops. There were several tall buildings, which is very scary for an outdoor event, but it's, even if something happens where the person that you're protecting does get hurt, you rely on the local officials. Where's the nearest hospital?
Right.
Because I might have a general, idea, the advance agent goes out before, remember? Right. So they have a general idea of where that hospital is and things like that. But the locals know how to get there the fastest. Right. And so we were relying a lot, on local officials. And it's sad that, obviously they knew there was a threat because he has private security and he's had issues before. But, it's just unfortunate because you always think, man, if they would have just secured those roofs or whatever, this could have been avoided.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
But yeah, it's, I'm still thinking about it.
I know.
Yeah, and you remember the clip of his 3-year-old daughter running to him when I think he was on Fox News or whatever.
Fox News Studios, yes.
I lost it when I saw that.
Well, I know. And a daughter is so connected and so in love with her father at that age, and he in love with her, and there's a connection there. And
to know that she's not gonna have him.
She's never gonna be able to roll over, sneak in the bed in the morning when she's scared and roll over and hug him. And his wife is never gonna be able to I call Brian constantly during the day just to vent about stuff, and sometimes not even vent, just to talk about something that annoy. Yeah, he's my best friend, and she's never gonna be able, if she's feeling uncertain or unsure or just wants to be I don't like this roadblock here today, She's never gonna have him to, call on and just vent or talk to or, go pick up milk at the grocery store because she's run out of milk
Mhm.
for the kids. It's just like small things like that where like your partner, when you're married and you know this, your partner, you hold each other up. You're each other's support system. That's a marriage. And doing that, you're taking care of your children and building them up to be the best that they can be. And when they get married, hopefully pass those teachings on to their children and their children after that. That's a
Mhm.
legacy.
Mhm.
And I honestly, correct me if you don't, but I feel like, in certain points when people say, in church, like you live forever, I do feel like in that sense you do because you're passing that on. And
Yeah,
when
it's like a part of you.
yeah, you're little parts of you. You're little and you God put your partner there. You made that commitment to your partner and that's a promise to continue that on,
Mhm.
generation after
Mhm.
generation. Um
You know what I think about? I think about these kids when they get older and they Google this, they're gonna see their father assassinated.
yeah.
And for what? Like you go through so many emotions, and that's the thing is like, I didn't follow Charlie Kirk. Like, why am I so emotionally invested in this? And you
Yeah.
just start going down this rabbit hole of he was a father, he was a son,
He
he
was
was
a
a husband.
good person
And,
too.
like, I think what has come out of this is I feel like I'm inspired, obviously, to be closer to Christ
Yeah.
and to open up my Bible a little more. We go to church, but um, be a better wife,
Yeah.
appreciate your husband, and be a better mother.
Yeah.
What's really important?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like he always said, my children are way more important than my career.
Right.
And it's like, it, me reflecting, it's like, okay, there's been so many times where it's like, I'm stressing so much about this career in real estate, and I love real estate, I'm
Yeah.
passionate about real estate, but what's really important?
Yeah.
And I remember, us being in Kentucky and we went to Nashville Zoo after that in Tennessee. We went to Georgia. We had this great trip. But when this happened, it was just like it was kind of like just depressing.
Yeah.
But it put things in perspective, like
Yeah.
what's really important.
Yeah.
Like collecting rocks with my daughter,
Yeah.
which she loves.
Which she'll
Let's
always
do
remember.
It'll take an hour, but you know what? There's a lot of rocks in Kentucky. And it's like, you know what? Put the phone away. I
Yeah.
know he talks about, obviously he talks about the Ten Commandments, about honoring the Sabbath,
Yeah.
and how he puts his phone away on Friday night, and he,
Yeah.
um, you know, puts it back on Sunday morning. And I'm thinking, how can I do this with real estate? Like, I was
I
like,
know.
I would have to get an assistant or something,
Yeah.
because we've talked about this before.
Mhm.
If we get a showing request or a contract or an offer on a
Mhm.
house, like you got to be able to respond. But I was like thinking, like, how can I do this? Like, how can I put my phone away? Like, I was like, maybe I could get an assistant just for one day a week
Yeah.
and, direct all my listings. Hey, the assistant can coordinate for that one day,
Yeah.
and it just makes you kind of think about all these things now,
Yeah.
right? And put
Yeah.
life in perspective,
Yeah.
right?
Be present for what matters. Ann Willis, she's a retired ERA Neubauer
Okay.
agent.
I don't know
And
her.
I think she retired before, like a long time ago, 10 years ago.
Okay.
But
So before I got him.
yeah, so she was diagnosed. I hope it's okay I say this, but she was diagnosed with cancer,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember she was telling me about that, her thinking process behind. So she was like one of the top 10 agents consistently for like
Oh, wow.
since 1977 or
Oh, yeah.
1978. So she was there a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she was diagnosed and it put things in perspective of what really matters.
Mhm.
And she said this, and I never forgot it. She said, if you pass away, so if we die today, knock on wood, if we die today, do you think your customer is going to care? No, they're going to call the office and want to know who's handling their listing
Mhm.
now.
Mhm.
But if you pass away, you know, who's really going to be affected? Your children
Mhm.
and your husband.
Mhm.
And that's what matters.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. And so I've definitely, I mean, I couldn't agree with her more. Is
Yeah.
she's still alive or?
Yeah.
Okay,
She
good.
is. Yeah. She's
Good.
still alive. She gardens.
Good.
Yeah.
That's
Friends with her
awesome.
on Facebook. I love watching like her posts and stuff like that.
How old is she now?
Oh, good question. She has to be like maybe in her 70s, maybe. I think she's as old as Tom and Margaret because she used to, Tom and Margaret used to have pool parties at her
Oh,
house.
cool.
And when Brian was like 2 or 3, she would play with Brian in the pool. And so she would tell me about that.
That's awesome.
I know.
Let me ask you this. Do you feel like since you've been married or have become a mother, which, you became a mother very young,
19.
do you feel like that has made you more conservative in your beliefs?
Immediately.
Why do you,
I
why do
don't
you
know.
think?
It wasn't
Yeah.
even any, I wasn't. So on paper, I probably would not have said like, yes, I'm a conservative
Mhm.
or,
Yeah.
yes, because when you're that young, actually, I'm correcting myself. I was 18 when I had
Wow.
Sean. I had just turned 18 because my birthday was February. He was born in April.
Wow.
So I didn't really have like the normal high school experience, obviously.
Yeah.
But as soon as I had Sean, it was almost like God planted that seed in me. And I wouldn't have even at the time said that it was God. It was a natural, like primal feeling is that my mission on earth now is to protect my children and give them the best life possible. Whatever that means, I have to do.
Yeah.
So for a really long time, it was before I was married to Brian. It was just me, Sean, and Bryce for a really long time, about 11 years.
Wow.
And I was a single mom. I put myself through college online while I was working full time. We lived in like a little town home in Donaldson Point, which is like still a diamond in the rough in Bay County. Like if you're looking for a home, look at Donaldson Point. They have beautiful
That's right
waterfront
before the
homes.
Tyndall Bridge, right?
Yeah.
On the right.
Yeah, in
Yeah,
Parker.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like a little hidden gem. But I raised them in a tiny little townhome until they're about 11 and 12, 13.
Were you in property management at that time?
I worked in property
Okay.
management and rentals, and I saved up enough money. So I put myself through college. I don't even use that degree. Well, I do a little bit, but
I
it
don't
was
use-
just
yeah.
in business.
Yeah.
And I saved up enough money because in real estate, you have to have a good padding. You have to because you could go months and months and months without selling. And especially when you start in real estate, you might go a year without selling a house. So I just kept saving like $100 here. Do I have a little extra money this month? $100
Which is really
there.
hard.
Yeah.
I can't really relate, but I can understand how expensive it is to raise a child.
Yeah.
That's where, I can find, but I can't even imagine being able to save and have 2 young children.
Yeah, it was hard. And I wasn't receiving child support. And that's just a whole, but I feel like every time my children, they gave me strength. Like every time I saw them, every time they smiled at me, every time they crawled in the bed and they put their arms around my neck and they're like, "Mommy, we love you." It gave me strength to go on another day. And I feel like that strength, looking back at it, that entire process, and I know there are so many people that go through, hard times. There are so many.
Yeah.
Like we're all dealing with our own struggles.
Yeah.
But looking back at it, I put that toward God. Like that was God putting that mother instinct in me to take care of them, to be able to continue to build, to be able to now, today, give them the life that they deserve because those kids are so good. And so I think about like going back to Charlie Kirk and that experience that his children and his wife went through with that. I pray that in her, in Erica, that she finds that strength, that calling, that God is planting that seed that she's able to achieve and give and be just amazing.
It has to be from God. She was like, she had the, where she spoke just days after. And I'm thinking, there's no way I could do this.
I don't think I could do it either, but somehow God gives you
Phenomenal.
strength in difficult times. And I truly believe that.
For me personally, I was raised in a conservative family. Like I said, my dad, he was always a man of law. I come from a law enforcement family. My dad was a prosecutor. He's now the state attorney.
Yeah.
So I was privy to evil, like as far as like I probably
Seeing
saw crime scene photos
Yeah.
way before I should have,
Right.
but I was very aware of the evil that was in the world and
Yeah.
this whole like good versus evil thing. And I just remember like I was a pretty good kid. Like
Yeah.
I really was. Like I mean I had friends that, got into bad things and then I just had to cut that friendship off
Yeah.
because it was just like I'm not into that.
And
That's
don't relate.
wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think without that moral code, like I wouldn't be where I'm at today. Now in college at Florida State, I studied international affairs.
Yeah.
And because I was so curious about learning about different cultures and different people and why do people think the way that they do and different governments.
Yeah.
I was so into it. I had friends from all walks of life. I wanted to learn about them and why they view the way they did.
Yeah.
I never really got into these like political debates. It was, I had my beliefs, they had theirs. If it was different, great. But I wouldn't say debates, but we would have conversations,
Yeah.
like civil conversations. That's what's so great about the United States of America is you can have differing opinions
Right.
and maybe come to some sort of common ground. Like,
And understanding
I
of
mean,
each other.
I gravitated actually to these people
Yeah.
a little bit because I wanted to understand where they came from. Like,
Yeah.
I have great friends. Like, why did you vote for him? Like, what drew you to this candidate to vote for them? What are your beliefs
Right.
and why? And these are my beliefs, But I think I want to raise Sawyer, my daughter, to stand up for what she believes in and not be apologetic for it. Now, I also want to teach her in no way are you to bully or hate somebody
Right.
that has different opinions than you.
Yes.
Now, I've come a long way since college. I mean, that
Yeah.
was, 2009 when I
Mhm.
graduated. Okay. I'm kind of dating myself. But I think when I got married and when I have a child, I definitely moved further right as
Yes.
far as that protection and wanting to raise her in the church and teach her right from wrong. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying the left doesn't know about right or wrong. I'm not saying that. But as far as my views for protecting life, pro-life,
Yeah.
I was very involved in sports in high school.
Yeah.
I was voted most athletic, and I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm just saying I was very passionate about sports and women's in sports. I remember when in middle school, I did a whole project on Title IX, which was equality for women in sports,
Yeah.
which could be a controversial topic.
Go you,
But
that's
essentially, like,
amazing.
if you have like a man's sport, like a football, you had to
Yeah.
have another sport, soccer for women or something
Yes.
like that. So the whole idea of like a biological male in women's sports, I'm very passionate about that. And if you believe differently, that's fine, but this is what I believe from
Yeah.
my experiences to where I'm at now. I remember when I was 21, I was with Border Patrol.
Yeah.
Which, I had my views on the border and securing the border because I was a Border Patrol
Witnessed it.
agent.
Yeah.
And I remember my journeyman, he did not really like me, had a lot of experience. He was probably the late 30s and I was 21.
Yeah.
I was energetic, probably a little immature,
Yeah.
but I feel like at 21, I had already got my college degree. I was already a federal law enforcement officer. So I felt like I had accomplished something
Yes.
and that I was more mature than like the average 21-year-old, right? But I remember he told me, he was like, wait until you're like near your 30s or into 20s and you'll really have a different perspective on life
Yeah.
and just life experience.
Yeah.
And I took such offense to that because I think when you're that young, you think you're invincible
Yeah.
and you just, you think you're great.
Yeah.
And then when I got in like towards my 30s, I'm like, even though I didn't really like this guy,
Yeah.
he was so right
Yeah.
because I just looked at the world completely differently.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I don't have friends or family that have different views than I do, but I do gravitate to people that have similar conservative ideals,
Yeah.
like now, and it just changed me, honestly, getting married, having a child. I'm obviously still super independent, going through 10 years of law enforcement. I got to see the world. And I remember when Trump won,
Yeah.
which I don't really put my political views out there that much, but
Yeah.
when he won, I did a little bit. And
Yeah.
I remember I had this childhood friend, he's now in California. And obviously, he gravitates more to the left, whatever. And we had a little debate on Instagram, I think. And it was fine. Like, we're still friends. I love him to death.
Yeah.
I grew up with him.
Yeah.
But this is why I believe this,
Yes.
and it was good to see his viewpoint.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think Charlie Kirk said it best. When you stop having conversations, even if it's differing opinions, that's what leads to civil war.
Yes.
And I think that's what he was doing. He was encouraging people to come debate him.
Yes.
And do I agree with 100% of what he was saying? No, I agree with the majority of the things that he was saying.
Same.
And I welcomed it. It was kind of like, and him preaching and being so knowledgeable is almost like a photographic memory. Like he was so knowledgeable on philosophy and, Aristotle and Socrates. And then he was so knowledgeable about the history and the Constitution and where we came from and Christianity. I mean, that was first and foremost. He wanted to be remembered for his courage and his faith.
Yes. And
I had this one quote, if I can find it. He spoke that liberty and freedom cannot coexist without the belief in a higher power. And I thought this was really interesting that he was able to articulate, and I never thought of it like this. But listen to this. One of the reasons we're living through a constitutional crisis is that we no longer have a Christian country, but we have a Christian form of government, and they're incompatible. You cannot have liberty if you do not have a Christian population. So what he's saying is kind of our Constitution, and like I mentioned earlier, the Declaration of Independence.
Yes.
The majority of the people that signed the Declaration of Independence believed in Jesus Christ and used the Bible as their moral code and guide for life.
Their roadmap for life.
And so he's saying we have a form of government that's Christian, but not necessarily a country that's Christian. And now they're like this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, that's really, articulate. And I hadn't thought of it like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel I almost, and not to kind of get too much into, but I feel the Bible is a roadmap for us all.
For sure.
For our legacy, for our children to live by, to live happy. I saw a video, I scroll Instagram all the time.
Yeah.
But after the kids, it's like my calm down time, my
but
de-stress
really, sometimes
time.
you don't de-stress because you're like, why am I looking at
this world is crazy. What am I watching?
Yeah.
But I saw this woman, and she was living opposite of the Christian beliefs, and she was so thoughtful and insightful, but she didn't believe in the Bible and Jesus, and she just had a lot of left beliefs. And she said that it was actually related to Charlie Kirk. I think it's probably why it popped up on my For You. But she said that she started kind of watching a couple of clips almost in an effort to look into it more and say, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about. But some of the stuff he was saying, she started saying, well, that's not wrong. That's right. Okay, so fast forward 10 years, she now has children. And she's married, and she's so conservative because she felt like, and she believes, she goes to church, she believes she's a Christian, she was saved, because, and she said, she made the point at the end of this video, she said, and I'm happier because before I was living in such hate. And I feel like that message he was trying to just get out to people to help them understand that we can all live happy, good, continue on with our legacy, live happy together, and make good choices. I sound like my mother. Make good choices.
It's funny how you turn into your parents.
Yeah.
Honor your father and mother. I always, think that. But I think there was so many people that accused him of hate speech, right? His speech is protected under the First Amendment, political free speech. And so many people said it was hate speech. But in reality, I just felt like they hated his speech.
Yes. They hated what he was saying.
And he could back it up. And then it's like, just, man, to be assassinated on live television for having a viewpoint.
Yeah, speaking.
If this was somebody else, if this was someone prominent in the Democratic Party, I wouldn't be able to relate as much, but I would have so much sympathy.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? I wouldn't be able to relate because I don't have the viewpoints. That's great.
But it's a human life.
And I think with the Democratic Party, you do see a lot of people that are left, but they do sympathize with what happened, and this shouldn't happen. I think the media rhetoric could play a part in this.
Yeah.
Obviously the investigation's still going on, and I have friends who have all sorts of conspiracy theories. And I welcome it. That's what I'm saying. I have, we were just at lunch the other day with some friends, and they, they're talking about all sorts of different options. But if this, alleged assassin is what, basically the district attorney is saying, and the director of the FBI, and all the evidence, is pointing to he was radicalized within the last year, according to his own
In
parents.
college.
So was it in college?
Yeah.
So I know he did like a semester or something,
It makes
but
me scared.
it's
for sure.
just unfortunate, and I just feel like it could have been avoided, and
Yeah.
it's so weird because I'm always like, can we just go back in time? Can we get in a time travel
I know.
scene and just, prevent this from happening?
Yeah.
But it's happened, and I think, it's great that we talked about it today.
Yeah.
So Deuteronomy 6, 6 through 7.
7.
What does that say?
All right. So talking about the 10 Commandments,
Mhm.
and that's what this is referencing. Moses talking about the 10 Commandments. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and you get up.
Yeah, I think, the verse emphasizes the teaching God's words continually and making it part of your daily life, not just your worship. This was Charlie Kirk. I mean, he
Yeah.
was unapologetically Christian
Yes.
and believed that Jesus was the way of life. And, you know, first and foremost, he wanted to be remembered for his courage and his faith. And
Yeah.
obviously, he was involved in politics. He was a strong supporter of our president,
Mhm.
of, the MAGA movement. But I think first and foremost, he always kind of reverted back to scripture. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think definitely you have to, as a Christian, and obviously I'm more gravitated towards the church and the Bible now after this. It's
Yeah.
almost a revival
Yeah.
within me.
I agree with
And
you.
I think maybe around the country too, time will tell, but I think it's important to talk about it. And this is not normally what we talk about,
No,
right?
it's not, but it's important that we say something.
Yeah. And I think, some people might not agree with us, and it's a little uncomfortable, honestly. It's like
Yeah.
talking about money,
Yeah.
right? Why is there such a negative stereotype about talking about money and these hot topics? And
Yeah.
I think it's good that we're getting it all. I feel better,
Yeah, I do too. I think
right?
it was important to talk because I think that that's what he did. He talked about it to bring people closer to God, you know.
What do you think about, and we're going to wrap this up soon, but what do you think about the people celebrating his death?
I
That's
don't
hard to
like
watch.
I don't like it. I
I
don't
don't
like it
either.
at all.
It's
I
very
think
hard to watch.
it almost goes back to pointing out the evil in the world
Yeah.
and how much of it there is that you can't immediately see in someone
Yeah.
because like you said before, I don't care who it is. I would never celebrate
No.
someone's death.
No. Like when George Floyd died,
Yeah.
I was devastated. I was like, this is very unfortunate.
Or that
And
girl on the train.
oh gosh, yeah.
It just there's been a lot
Yeah, it's just
these
it's been
last
really
few
heavy.
weeks.
It's been really heavy. And where did we get to the point where we're what is the word?
Dehumanizing.
Dehumanizing people.
Yeah.
Apparently you need to go to speech class. But when did we come to that point? Like, this isn't a video game.
No.
Like, this is
Right.
trauma. Like, just watching it. Our children are watching it. You have young kids watching this
Yeah.
video. You saw a man lose his life. Did you see where one of the people that was in his motorcade, he wasn't a protection detail. I think he was like a mentor for Charlie Kirk. He was on the news last night. Did you see that
I
interview?
didn't see it.
Essentially, they ruled that he was dead immediately. So they did get a pulse at the hospital because he's a healthy 31-year-old.
Yeah.
They did get his heart back, but he was gone. Like even
Yeah.
when they were in the car, like he was already with Jesus. And it's traumatic. You know what I mean?
It is traumatic.
And I don't think anybody should be celebrating it.
No.
Jimmy Kimmel was just his show was just postponed
I saw that.
for essentially saying that this was a MAGA supporter or something like that, which clearly this is right after the DA has released, in my opinion, more information to the public than he should have.
Yeah.
But it's overwhelming evidence that we're leading towards this guy was radicalized over the last year
Yeah.
and he was part of the left party. And to mislead the public like that, on the other side, people are saying, "Oh, you're preaching about free speech. What about this?" But I think with ABC, that's a business. It's
Mhm.
different, when the majority of the population is thinking one, and that's just not funny. It's just
No,
not funny.
it's not funny.
And hopefully he can come back and apologize. And, nobody wants to see someone lose a job, but this is a business. It's not like Fox News or MSNBC. They have specific guidelines that they have to go by.
Yeah, and these teachers, our governor put out a letter to educators.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
You do not need to be celebrating this death because
Yeah.
you are held to a standard
Yeah.
to educate innocent, impressionable
Yeah.
minds. To celebrate anyone's death is wrong.
That neurosurgeon,
Mhm.
that I think it's like, oh my gosh, can you imagine if I had something wrong and that neurosurgeon knew that I was MAGA and is operating on me?
Yeah.
It's just,
It's scary.
I'm always a firm believer in free speech.
Yeah.
And like I said, I have people that have different opinions than me. I don't hate them.
Yeah.
I don't try to embarrass them. I will get pretty rowdy on the debates.
Yeah.
It's just because I like to talk, and
Yeah.
that's something I need to work on. But, I think, can we all just get along
Yeah.
and,
Respect
love
each
each
other.
other?
Yeah, love each other.
Yeah. So, do you have any other thoughts or anything? I thought this was a good quote. Well, obviously, Jesus defeated death so you can live.
Yeah.
It's Charlie Kirk. And greatness requires a liberty and the drive to make the most of yourself. Basically saying liberty gives you the opportunity, but drive is what turns that opportunity into achievement.
Yeah. So you can do anything you want.
Yeah.
I hope everyone knows that as far as making
Absolutely.
achievements to better yourself.
But we have to be in a
So,
free country.
Yep.
And I think, hopefully the media rhetoric on both
Mhm.
sides is toned down a little bit. That's
Yeah.
my wish, because you never, obviously this is a long investigation. We'll get more information as the weeks, pass, but it just seems that, maybe, when you use words like fascist and Hitler and Mussolini and Stalin, you really put fear into people, because
Yeah.
these are not great people.
Yeah.
And when you're saying that some, prominent people in the Republican Party are a threat to democracy, especially to a 22-year-old alleged assassin,
Yeah.
this might not go over well. They might
Yeah.
think in their head, I'm the hero. I'm taking out this fascist,
Yeah.
which obviously there's some writings on the casings.
Yeah.
So, let's tone down the rhetoric on both sides.
Yeah.
And I don't remember this being this divide being like in college.
Yeah.
I don't remember it being such a huge divide.
Yeah.
Right?
I know.
So I think if we talk more,
Mhm.
we can find more common ground and more agreements than disagreements.
Yeah.
So that is my hope that comes out of this.
Yeah.
And also lead more people to follow Jesus. I mean, there's people going to church that haven't gone to church for years. I love
know.
it.
I love that too.
So it makes me happy.
Yeah. Same. While we grieve, we also have to carry forward the work, living out faith, raising our families with love, and not being afraid to stand for what we believe in. Thanks for joining us today on today's episode of The Real Estate Girls. Today wasn't our usual real estate talk, but we felt it was important to pause and reflect together. Our hope is that you leave this episode encouraged, reminded of what truly matters, and inspired to hold your loved ones a little closer.
Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and follow us on social media for behind-the-scenes content, up-and-coming episodes, and expert tips you do not want to miss, real advice, real insights. We are the Real Estate Girls. Drop us a comment, and we'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
God bless.
God bless.